Hey, what's up guys? Tom Spark here again with another video. Today we're talking a little bit more about jurisdiction. Now, if you've been on the channel for a while, you've probably seen me complain and kind of rant about how I think jurisdiction is a load of bull. Not to mention the marketing going with jurisdiction is a little bit confusing. Now, if you don't know what jurisdiction is, it basically means where the base of a company is located. Now, a lot of ways that VPN reviewers try to advertise a VPN as the best VPN is using one of the reasons in that they aren't based inside the United States. My line of reasoning has always been that if you can trust a company, if the company has a good reputation, if they have no logging policy, all of these things contribute to why you should trust them, and not necessarily that they're based somewhere else. Because a lot of these cases where companies are based somewhere else, they do have questionable reputations, they do have questionable company origins, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you should trust them just because they're not based within the US. Now, I found an interesting post on privacytools.io subreddit. Now, privacytools.io is kind of like a website that tries to be like a privacy mastermind. It does have some good advice, about what kind of extensions and stuff you can use, but I find that their VPN section is mostly a load of FUD, that being fear, unrest, and distrust, in that they recommend kind of weird services that aren't based in the US that aren't necessarily good. So this thread I found on their subreddit is pretty interesting. Basically what it is that this guy is talking about, well, privacytools.io advocates not to choose a US-based service. Isn't Firefox, Signal, Bitwarden US-based? Does being open source neutralize the effect of being US-based? So he proposes an interesting question, right? Well, why does this website recommend using all these other tools that are also based in the US, but they recommend not to use other tools that aren't based in the US? Well, it's definitely a bit of a contradiction, and people discuss that in the comments quite interestingly. This guy says it doesn't have to do with the location as much as his opinion, but rather how the internet or the company is audited and trusted and stuff like that. Now, audits can be a little bit questionable in that, a company can advertise an audit, and then before it happens, they could get rid of anything that could be problematic. But other people talk about some various other things. And one guy's comment I really liked is this guy right here. He says, just remember that the US is an infinitely better jurisdiction than most of the rest of the world. Do you really think that companies in Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Iran, which strictly restrict free speech, are going to respect your privacy? You basically have to be a state entity to be a company in most of the world. If you're doing things that involve state secrets or could involve getting you arrested, then you might want to consider jurisdictions that are hostile to the country you're working against and don't have mutual legal assistance treaties. Other than that, you shouldn't care at all about jurisdiction other than avoiding authoritarian states, while companies can be safely assumed to be state organs. So this guy has a very good point. He's basically saying it doesn't really matter too much about jurisdiction unless you're some kind of terrorist or criminal or something like that. And in those cases, you should be using something based in like an enemy of it. Now, that's going a little bit far, but I do agree that it's not really much of an issue unless you do live somewhere that's authoritarian. You're not going to be wanting to use a Chinese-based VPN if you're in China, that's for sure. But if you're using a US-based VPN and you're in the US, you're going to be fine. Other people, of course, go into detail about their own opinions. Another comment that I like is this guy saying, any service in any country is subject to the government demands of that jurisdiction. Who you trust may be different than who another person trusts. It all depends on your specific threat model. For the majority of people, private companies are a much more real threat to their privacy than anyone else. You should consider the people you are trusting directly with your data before you worry about third parties. So I agree with this. You should consider the company itself as if it's something you can trust and not instead the jurisdiction in which it is based. Anyways, guys, just a quick little video, a little rant about jurisdiction some more, giving you some more of my thoughts and maybe some other people's thoughts on what they think about it. Overall, though, I think the main conclusion is that you should pick a VPN based on its reputation, its pricing, speeds, and stuff like that, and not consider too much its jurisdiction as a point that is really important, even though other websites use that as their selling points to advertise VPNs that make them the most money. NordVPN, ExpressVPN, CyberGhost, a lot of these VPNs that are expensive and popular and have, bases of location outside the US. So there you go. Anyways, guys, see you again in the next video, and let me know down in the comments down below what you thought of this one. I'll see you again very soon.